What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Coach Steve Show. If this is your first time listening or watching, please hit the like button, subscribe button on the YouTube channel, follow and rate on Apple and iTunes and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching it on video, we got a new camera. We're trying to see how that looks. It kind of shows more of the behind the scenes stuff. We got the laptop, the computer screen. Uh, got my gaming PC that you can see here. Just working out some kinks here. My background is set up to the old way, so we'll see. Just trying to update it. So if you're looking at it right now and it doesn't look the greatest, we are just trying to upgrade a little bit. You could see the microphone stand. You could see a little bit of everything here. Uh, Behind the scenes magic here, as we would like to say. Like you get to see a little bit of a little something something here. So just trying to upgrade. The camera, I think, looks a lot better than the other one. So we upgraded just a hair. So if you're watching, please hit the like button. If you're watching, please leave a comment in the comment section down below. So today we're going by the seat of our pants because I wanted to try out the new gear. But this is a topic I've thought about talking about for quite some time. We talk about it with other coaches around us. I sent a tweet out asking about it. Um, let's talk about travel sports. Let's talk about it because us high school coaches have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts. We have a lot of different experiences. Let's discuss travel ball from the high school sport coach perspective. Growing up, you always wanted to play for your high school baseball, basketball, soccer, softball, football. The main goal here is to play for your high school, unless I'm mistaken. You got to let me know if I'm mistaken or not. Travel sports, when I was growing up, they were around. They did a little bit. AAU basketball was a thing, but it wasn't as big, I think, as it is today. Travel baseball kind of was a thing. It was mainly in the summer where you got to play a little bit of extra baseball. There was different legions, and people would sign up for them in the summer. They would have to try to work around any summer camp stuff for football or basketball. But over time, now this was the mid 2000s. I believe since the mid 2000s till now, this travel sport and youth sports stuff has generated over billions, millions, and billions of dollars. Now, I'm not saying all travel sports are necessarily a bad thing. I just think that it takes away from what truly matters. And that to me is high school. It starts to put into kids' heads that they need to become a one sport athlete. I don't believe in kids being a one sport athlete. I am a football guy. Football will always be number one. So maybe this is coming from a football coach's perspective. I just promote all sports. When kids come in, I tell them, hey, especially when they're freshmen, I don't care what age they are, but especially freshmen and a little bit of sophomore year, if you have any inkling to play another sport, just to try it, go try it because it is going to help them in football, and that's the way my mind works. Is it's going to help in football, but I try to separate the football coach in me towards that, and more thinking of it, it just will help them overall as an athlete. Where in football they're doing certain movements, they go to basketball or wrestling, it works on different movements, hand-eye coordination. Or if they go do baseball, volleyball, tennis, whatever it is, it shows a little bit more competitiveness. Like they're putting different situations and how are they going to compete. And so I always promote those other sports. But over time, you're starting to have more of this travel ball stuff, this AAU stuff. And not necessarily do we look at blaming kids for a lot of it. You got to look at the coaches that do it. If you think these travel ball coaches are not making money, you are sadly mistaken. They make money. There are some out there that are doing it for the right reasons. They're looking at the kids that just play basketball. But when these kids go to sign up, if that coach gives them any inkling that they could play college in said sport, what then starts to happen is they start to sprinkle in a little bit of that. You only have to do this. My experiences, I have been heard and seen coaches, seen messages. Don't why would you play football when you've got your baseball season? You also have your travel baseball season. Why would you go do baseball when you've got your basketball AAU and all those things? And that stuff really irks me because that coach is essentially telling them to not play another sport. This really does hurt the athlete. It hurts the high school, and it really affects high school teams because people seem to think that travel sports is quote unquote more competitive. The other lie to me with these travel sports, just because they play travel does not mean that they are necessarily great at their sport. And I don't mean to say that in a bad way. In high school, we have time to try to develop them. When you're playing travel, at least, and this is all from my experiences, that's why I want people to comment about their experiences. My experience is that I see kids pay thousands, parents pay thousands of dollars, and there's no practice. They have this weird thought with these coaches. These coaches have a weird thought in playing games is what gets you better. And to me, the game is the byproduct of your practice. The work you're putting in practice shows in the game. If you're just constantly playing games, yeah, you're competing. Yeah, you're doing those type of things. So there's some positives to it, but ultimately, I don't understand the thing of not practicing. I'm not saying you got to practice every single day. I'm not saying that you shouldn't play games, but I've never understood the thought process of paying $4,000 to $5,000. It's cool to go travel, but I've never understood like if I asked my parents to pay for so let's see with inflation, times have changed. If this was mid 2000s or what if I went up to my parents and said, "Hey, I need $2,000 to go play basketball or baseball, but we're going to travel, but you got to pay the $2,000." They would have laughed, F off, go get a job to pay for it yourself, which then takes away from playing sports. My parents were fortunate enough to say that to me to say, "Okay, you got a couple options here. One is to work or play sports." And I chose to play sports because I knew I'd have the rest of my life to work. And, I knew I didn't have a lot of extra spending money and everything like that. My thought process and the way growing up was you had to play multiple sports. That's just what it was. That's just the nitty gritty of it. There is you to play multiple sports. And so we played all three sports. Some of us played two, but most of us played three and or tried. Like they bounced around and tried different sports. And then when you got to the summer, so I would do football, basketball, baseball, and then I did track. When we got to the summer, my next focus was okay, I need to lift and get stronger. I need to focus on my next sport, which is football. But there was no harm in going to a couple of the basketball stuff. There was no harm in riding your bike to the park and playing some pickup basketball after your football stuff was done. Or I would go take some shots up because I loved having that break. I loved playing football. Football was the one sport to me where you were around a bunch of different people. You had to really learn to work as a team. If you had 40 to 60 kids on your varsity team, you are around these different types of people. You have to learn how to work together. You have multiple coaches. The ultimate, to me, it was one of the ultimate competitivenesses on the field. Basketball, if you had one or two guys to bail you out, that's just what would happen. And baseball, it was very slow paced. Track, even though you're a team, you're kind of by yourself. I always wanted to focus on that, but getting back to the part of that I love football, when it was over, like you wanted to win, you wanted to get to the playoffs. When it was done, we always got like a couple days off before we would move on to the next one. Those couple days and going into the next sport, even though you'd miss basketball or football and would go into basketball, or if some people go into wrestling, I was excited to move on to the next sport because it was a different level of being competitive and it was a different level of skills that you would have to try to use. The thumbs up, I don't know why it does that. I'm so sorry. It's something to do with maybe my MacBook. But that's what would happen. And I'm doing basketball. Basketball is a long, long, long season. And when we got to baseball, or when I did track, I loved getting to a different sport. I would never want to play 20 to 30 baseball games in the spring, then ask my parents to pay two to $5,000 and go play 20 more games and constantly be doing more. Because number one, I would be done with baseball. I want to move on to the next thing. You can just pick up your bike or your car and go to the park and get some shots up, just that way you don't lose the feel of your shot. Go to a batting cage. Go do something like that. I never understood that because I personally would lead to a burnout. I never really experienced a burnout um, in high school. The closest I got was the constant lifting, trying to keep up with people because I wasn't genetically gifted in the weight room as some of the people I played with. That part was getting burned out. Doing extra stuff like drills was getting to become like a burnout. But that was the closest. I personally, if I did baseball, while trying to do football, while trying to do basketball stuff, I would feel a burnout from sports. And everybody experiences a burnout at a different time. I believe that a very, very small percentage of people that become one sport athletes and does this travel ball stuff, very few percent does not experience a burnout. I think it's very high. There are some diamonds in the rough. There's always an exception to the rule that some kids are not going to feel a burnout. And then there's the coaches really hurt it because they feed into this. Well, if you do this all the time, you're going to go play Division 1 baseball. You're going to play you're going to go play college basketball. The only thing with football you're seeing travel wise, I think, is more of the 7-on-7. The only thing I like about 7-on-7 is that it's different and you can compete a little bit until you put some pads on. But like just doing constant 7-on-7 is not realistic because the types of coverages you see where the guys drop back into coverage and everything like that just is not realistic. Um, and so I'm not a big fan of that either. And then there's so many different levels of these travel ball stuff. And what happens is these kids then when they play their high school season and they don't play a lot or they're not starting, they start to become frustrated. The parents become frustrated. And I've seen it. This happened to me even at a middle school level. I was a head middle school basketball coach, and certain kids were not playing a lot or starting. And parents emailed me saying, well, they were on this travel basketball team together and they were able to start. Why can't they start for you? And I kindly responded with, well, number one, you're not paying me personally to coach them. Number one, the school pays me. Number two, that's your travel ball stuff where you don't have a lot of kids on one team and you have different levels. Come to find out, they were on like the lower tier. And when they're on, and some of these teams, when they're on a lower tier and they win, they get this perception that they are the best. Then they get into high school and there's kids that might be better and maybe they did play travel stuff and they're better. So now as high school coaches, we are now fighting that. And then it might cause them to quit and just focus on travel. To me, winning in high school is way more meaningful than winning in a travel because in a travel, you are essentially picking players that are on your team. In high school, you don't get to pick that. If it's a cut sport, the coaches pick who's on there. If it's not a cut sport, they keep everybody. You have to now be in a learn how adult things and learn how to work together and come together as a team. You did not pay me $5,000 as a coach, so I feel that high school coaches are going to be more about the player, and they have to learn to overcome and adapt. As adults, we have to do that as well. If you move from a job to another job, you no longer have that inner circle of work buddies, anything like that. You now have to learn how to talk to them. You now have to learn how to work together, and you have to learn how to kind of come out of your shell. And this is coming from me where I'm one of the shyest people. I'll go around people and not talk for an hour. But once I'm around people, but I've done that. I've been on different coaching staffs. I work in different schools, and I had to learn very quickly how to talk to people. And the thing is, it's actually very easy because you just talk about what you're doing. So when I go to a different football coaching staff, it's super easy to talk about football and then start to talk about other sports, strength and conditioning, things like that. That's why I like doing the podcast because I get football coaches on. I don't have a script, I don't have anything like that. Yes, I have generalized questions, but I've learned how to talk to them because it's sports, it's football. So we're doing a disjustice to these kids, and then people are starting, people have this feeling of, oh well, they want a state or they want some championship in travel ball. Talking to these coaches, they do not care. They do not care that you went on a travel ball team and won a championship. Yeah, maybe it's cool, good for you, but they really like the high school setting. So someone responded with to the tweet saying that these college coaches only care about travel ball and paid camps. And I don't believe that's true because talking to the coaches, they truly believe in talking to the coaches, find out who the person is. They like the high school film. Now, if there are exceptions to all rules. If you are a freshman sophomore in a sport and you are offered a Division 1 scholarship and you accept it and you start scaling back the sports, we have to then consider, well, okay, I get that, but I also think that hurts them as well. Well, and I hate the analogy of, well, you're just going to get hurt. Another story, when I was an assistant DC, we had a couple players, like a running back, quarterback. They were doing travel baseball, but they were doing it and also coming to football. Well, we had a 7-on-7 where we're going to play, not a tournament, but like you're going to go play 3 games. And these kids were on the same travel team and they had a game that day. And they came up to us and said, hey, we're going to talk to our baseball coach. We're going to skip the baseball game and come to the 7-on-7 because we got, a tournament all weekend. And so even just missing one game is not going to hurt. They went and told their baseball coach. They came to our 7-on-7. Well, then the coach didn't play them all weekend in this tournament. The kids came back the next week and said, hey, our coach did not play us. He was very upset that we did not go. It was a practice or a game they skipped, the very rare practice that they do have. And they didn't, he was very upset about it. And so our head football coach told him to tell him, hey, call me if he's got an issue. So this guy calls our head coach, and our head coach is a big guy, used to be a bodybuilder, called him saying, football's taken away from the travel baseball. They have a commitment and everything else, F football, blah, 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 blah. The head coach didn't like the way that he was talking to him. So he's like, guys, I'll be back. He drove to this practice, whatever this guy was doing, went up to the baseball coach, said, I'm here. What you got to say? And the guy didn't say anything. So this kind of shows how there are people out there in this travel sports world, this AAU world, where it's all about that. And so there's no pureness in it. And also, these travel coaches are not around the kids all the time, right? If you coach in high school and you coach, like I coach football, basketball, softball. So if a kid plays basketball, I'm not the freshman, but he still plays basketball. I'm still going to see him. I'm still going to build that relationship. If you work in the building, you're going to build that relationship. Just because a person is out of the building doesn't mean they can't really build a relationship. But I know it does kind of help when you're in the building or you do extra things. And then in this travel sports world, these kids can switch teams whenever they want. These parents also, I think, use this travel baseball as a way to go on vacations. So if they're like, well, we're going to go to Florida for like 4 to 5 days for a tournament, well, they're going to pay the money because they're thinking, well, we would pay that money to travel anyway, and they use it as a vacation. Another issue to me, you could probably save money and just have them do the summer sports at the high schools and use money to go on a vacation. I think it'd be less money. So it's a big money grab to me. It does a disservice to the development of athletes because you're just playing games, you're not really practicing. You'll have a handful of practices, but you're not really developing. And I just think it's going to lead to a burnout because, especially if the kids are playing in high school. So, if a kid in basketball in high school, let's say tryouts are the second week of November, and you're done at the end of February, beginning of March, you get a week off and you go straight into AAU. Like, how that to me, that does not sound fun. I would much rather go do a different sport. I much rather just lift and do sprint stuff, thinking back in the day, like that stuff, I don't get it. I just don't get it. And the people that really think that this is doing good is not. And it's starting to push kids to playing one sport because they're getting fed this stuff. These coaches don't know the kids' academics. They don't know their grades. They don't know how they act in school. They don't know their full competitiveness in other sports. The high school coaches do. Even outside of the building coaches, they know that kid better than travel coaches. And I know somebody's going to watch this as a travel coach and come after me. I want to be proven wrong. I would love to have conversations. This is from my own personal experiences. I'm heading into year 15 of coaching football. You know how frustrating it is when you're in the summer and we're preparing for football and kids are saying, well, I'm going to be gone from Wednesday to Monday because I'm going to go play in a tournament. And well, we got a joint practice with the team, or we have a 7-on-7 that we can go. It's a competition, and you can win money. We have this lineman challenge. It puts those kids behind in our football schemes and our plays because they're not there. And the other thing is, I don't think there's restrictions. Like these kids will go play 2 to 3 games a day. And kids, when I was a freshman baseball coach, my first year, I had 3 to 4 kids that had Tommy John surgery as freshmen. One or two got it on purpose, which that's a whole other topic. I'm not going to tell parents what to do. The other one was they threw their arms out. And I said, well, how? Well, travel ball, one game I threw like 100 pitches. The next day I pitched again. I threw like 80 or 90. There's no, like in high school in Illinois, we have a pitch limit, a pitch count. And so if they throw to a certain number, we have to put it in. It will tell us when's the next day they can throw and how many they can throw. And it's knowledge to all baseball coaches that have their login to the IHSA. Travel ball, I don't think there is. And so you're now hurting kids' arms because these coaches want to win because these parents are paying them $5,000 a piece. And just it does a disservice, I think, to kids. I think high school sports matter way more than any type of travel ball. And I think I'm not telling them not to do travel or clubs, but I just think that these coaches more like if you're looking at college coaches, no matter what it is, I think they would rather like to see them compete in high school to work with those kids and compete in different sports. I know some get scholarships from some of that stuff, but I just am so frustrated that people put any type of value on that when it comes to development. In my experiences, because all they do is play games. They're getting burned out, or they're going to. It may not hit them now. If they go play any type of college level sport for that, at some point they might get a burnout because once they get to college and see the amount of work and all the work they put in doing travel, it's just going to burn them out. And I do not want that. I want kids to play multiple sports. I want them to be fast. I want them to be confident. I want them to succeed. I want them to develop different things. We just got to stop putting so much emphasis on, well, we got to do travel ball. Well, I got travel. Like And then kids get behind it when we get into football and stuff. Well, why am I not in the starting thing? Well, you guess what? You were gone these 4 days, and the next week you're only here for two. And then we got into the season. This kid knows what he's doing, and you don't. And so we got to play him. And then they get frustrated, and it's like, hey, I'm so sorry that you're frustrated, but this is the reality of the world. And then kids nowadays, instead of just working together and competing to try to take that spot back, they would rather just quit. And so this has just been a spiral effect. And then COVID did not help the situation because some of that stuff did not have to follow certain rules, and they were able to go do these things outside. And so it's pushed to this travel baseball. Travel baseball is the worst. Like AAU basketball is kind of bad, but to me, my worst experiences is dealing with the travel baseball. That has been the worst because then they get told, "Why would you do football? You're going to get hurt. Why would you go do this? You're going to get hurt. You're going to be a Division I baseball player." Do you know how hard it is to play Division I baseball? They don't just have scholarships to give away like football. Basketball has more scholarships. Like they're not college football that has just all this money and scholarships that they can give away. And so this lie that gets told to kids by some of these travel ball coaches because they don't have the best interest. There are some out there that are really good, and I know for a fact they are because I know who they are and I see what they do. They're promoting other sports. This kid got cut from basketball, so he may never play basketball again, so he's doing something else. Fine, but it's getting done for the wrong reasons. There A lot of them are in it for the money, and they make decent amount of money. Some of it is their full-time job. That's how much money they make. And it's trickled down to really youth, like youth, not high school. It's trickling down to youth. I'm okay when they're really young to do these different things because they're not quite to the middle school. I think they should do their grade school basketball. Some grade schools aren't going to have their own baseball. You do your own thing. We all did that as kids. As they start to get to middle school and high school, it should be those sports, unless one just completely is not fun. Like, when a kid's BSing you, like, well, I'm just not having fun, and you'll know if he's BSing you or not. And then they stop. That's one thing. But, well, I'm just not going to play because I'm going to do this, or my coach says I have this opportunity. What does that coach see that we don't see? You know, so this is just my big old rant on travel sports and what it's doing to high school sports. And I know for a fact a lot of us high school coaches are done with it, with a lot of this travel stuff, and it's become a pain in our left ass cheek. I mean, it's getting out of control. So leave a comment down to give me your thoughts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow Ray on Apple and iTunes. Follow Coach underscore Steve 72 on X or Twitter. The Coach Steve Show on X or Twitter. Instagram Coach Steve 72. TikTok Coach Steve 72 as well. Check out all the other videos on the podcast. Again, we are trying out this new camera. You can kind of see everything. I'm going to have to fix it up a little bit, but you got the screens here, laptop. You can see the whole thing, but we'll adjust this. Don't worry. So thank you guys for watching and or listening. This is Coach Steve, and we will see you guys next time.
Mm-hmm.